Who will win the new space race? In this video, I will mention the competitors in the space race this time, what goal each country has, are their goals realistic, and who has the most chance of winning the new space race. The first space race started in 1957 when Sputnik, the first satellite, launched to space. Sputnik was from the Soviet Union. 1 month later, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 2, which brought aboard a dog as well. This was the first time a living organism was brought into orbit. In January 1958, the United States entered the space race by launching Explorer 1, the first American satellite to reach orbit. In October 1958, NASA was created in the U.S. to replace NACA, which stood for National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics. The next achievement was Vostok 1. Yuri Gagarin made an orbit around the Earth and became the first astronaut in space. In 1961, America put their first man into space. In 1965, the first spacewalk ever was done by the Soviet Union. The spacewalk was for 12 minutes. In 1967, 3 people died when a fire was ignited in their Apollo 1 launch pad. Only a few months later, a cosmonaut was killed when his parachute failed to open on his re-entry to Earth's atmosphere. In December 1968, Apollo 8 became the first human-crewed spacecraft to reach the Moon, orbit it, and return back to Earth. Finally, America won the space race by sending people to the Moon, with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin being the first people to walk on the Moon. The television landing was witnessed by 723 million people across the world. This time, however, there are way more competitors. There is also America and Russia, but there is now India, China, Germany, Japan, France, and much more. First, I will mention America's plan to go back to the Moon. Through the Artemis Program by NASA, there are a series of missions. Artemis 1 was the first mission in the program and was a mission where an unmanned spacecraft orbited the Moon. This was successful. Next in the missions is Artemis 2. This has not happened yet. In this mission, astronauts will orbit the Moon and come back shortly. If all goes according to plan, this will occur in November 2024. Finally, in the last mission, Artemis 3, people will go to the Moon, which will be the first time astronauts have been to the Moon in more than 50 years. Artemis 3 will take place in December 2025. However, due to the Starship's recent failure to launch for the second time, it is possible that NASA might not reach the Moon by 2026, and maybe not even 2027. Now I will talk about China's plan to go back to the Moon with people. 2 launch vehicles will send a Moon surface lander and manned spacecraft into lunar orbit before they dock with each other. After docking, the astronauts on board the spacecraft will enter the lander, which is used to descend on the lunar surface. This will happen by 2030 if everything goes well. I think China has a good chance of reaching this goal based on the progress they have made so far. In the first space race, the Soviet Union was doing really well in space exploration. However, this time Russia is not doing well when it comes to space. Furthermore, they are currently occupied by their war in Ukraine and are not focusing on space as much as they used to. In addition, Russia's recent spacecraft that was planned to go to the Moon failed, and Russia had not gone to the Moon before that for a very long time. So it is extremely likely that Russia will not win the space race this time. A huge player in the new space race is India. India recently succeeded in successfully launching Chandrayaan-3, which was the first rover to ever go on the dark side of the Moon. Furthermore, India is spending a lot less money than America, yet it is still having amazing achievements in space. So India is a huge competitor in the new space race. The European Space Agency is also a big competitor. They have had big partnerships with America like the DART spacecraft, which successfully changed the trajectory of an asteroid. ESA has 22 countries inside of it, including the United Kingdom, France, Italy, Switzerland, Spain, and many other countries. After those countries, there is Japan. Japan recently succeeded in launching a rover on the lunar surface. It aimed to go to a specific location on the moon rather than a vast area. Japan has been making some progress over the years. However, it is unlikely they will win the space race because they are not making as much progress as America, India, and China. Based on the plans to go to the moon between all these countries, the most likely winners are America and China. Despite the fact that America plans to go to the moon before this country, it is possible they might fail or an error will occur. Whereas China has an amazing track record for lunar launches. This is why China might win the space race. Who do you think will win the space race? Please subscribe.